now is ESPN NBA analyst extraordinaire and host of SiriusXM's Above the Rim and the All-NBA podcast. He is my brother. He is my friend. He is my contemporary, my colleague, spanning 20-plus years. The great one himself, the one and only Professor Tim Legler. I call him the professor because of the glasses here. What's up, Big Tom? How you doing, man? How's everything?
Hey, when I break these babies out, you know it's going to be a serious conversation. I know when you see the glasses on.
I know
hey, listen, in all seriousness, man, we've been colleagues for a long time, but it even fills my heart even more to call you a friend a lot longer than that, man. We've been together a long time.
Hey, same here, my brother. You know I love you to death, man. Always appreciate you. We go back many, many years, over 20 years now. Let's get right into it. I was in Philadelphia last night. We both conceded that Philadelphia 76ers were probably going to win Game 3, but I still think that the Knicks could take them out in 5. You said that's insane. This series is going 7 games. You saw Embiid drop 50 last night. First order of business, you think he can have this continue health-wise?
All right, here's the thing. 50 and asking him to put up these kind of numbers might be extreme, but here's the thing, man. He's proving to me, Stephen A., that he's probably 60, 70%. That's probably where I would put him. Physically, he's clearly not the presence on the glass. He's clearly not the presence in the paint defensively. But you know what? He can still score at a high rate, and he's playing mainly on the perimeter and still putting up these kinds of numbers. It gives me great hope that the Sixers are going to be able to hang in there and make this a very long series. So the one thing that was very encouraging in Game 3, it was the first one of the 3 games, I didn't see Joel Embiid show significant physical decline as the game went on. I didn't feel that way in Game 3. I did in Games 1 and 2. He got to the point where he couldn't change ends of the floor. I mean, he was dragging that leg up and down Madison Square Garden. So I think that's a good sign. Now, he had the extra day off in this case. That's significant, and he's going to get another extra day off before they play Game 4. Clearly, I think that had an effect because he was still pretty strong by his standards right now into the fourth quarter. That's a great sign for Philadelphia.
Do you believe, see, I was encouraged by the Knicks in Game 3 because I thought it took the 50 from Embiid in order for the Knicks to lose that game. If it were not for that, I think the Knicks win that game. Not to mention the fact that the New York Knicks clearly have a home court advantage at the Garden in New York. But there was a whole bunch of Knicks fans that showed up to the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia for Game 3. So I think Game 4, the New York Knicks could end up stealing that one, especially when I saw Brunson drop 39 and 13. What do you make of that assertion?
Yeah, listen, first of all, I want to say something, man. If Philadelphia fans get so much credit, rightfully so, for the way they travel, I mean, and it's whether it's the Eagles, the Sixers, Phillies, whoever it may be,
right?
They get a lot of credit because they take over opposing arenas, opposing stadiums.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, man. I was impressed with what New York brought to that game in Philadelphia. I think a lot of Philadelphia fans were taken aback by the level of nickdom in the lower half of that arena. So, first of all, that was incredible. The presence that they had in Philly, they're going to be there again for Game 4. Look, a lot of what you said is true. I think the fact that Brunson was finally able to have a fairly efficient game was important for the Knicks because he did not play well necessarily by his standards the first 2 games. He got on track in Game 3. But here's the thing. I thought Philadelphia strategically said, listen, Brunson's going to do his thing. He's going to take a lot of shots. Some nights he's going to make, certain percentage. He's going to get to his number. We got to make sure we control other guys. DiVincenzo, 7 shots. Look at his game log for the last 2 months. That's a quarter's worth of work some nights for Dante DiVincenzo. They did not give him space. They did a good job on Bogdanovich. McBride didn't have a presence in this game. I think Philadelphia is gambling that Jalen Brunson taking, 25 to 30 shots a night to do his thing offensively, they're going to live with as long as they don't get these splashy splurges from these other guys because they're all capable of having 10, 12-point quarters. Okay. That's what the Sixers are trying to take away and limit. I think that might be the way I would also play the New York Knicks. Force a 6'2" point guard to shoot the ball 30 times. If he's hitting, you might not be able to beat that team, but take your chances. You've got the defenders to make them just a little bit less efficient and try to turn the water off on those other role players. That's what I felt like Game 3 was about for the Knicks offensively.
I don't need to get into Orlando and Cleveland. I'm not that interested in yet, even though Orlando blew them out by damn near 40 in Game 3. Now they moved within 2-1, ultimately in position to tie the series in Game 4. I want to go to Milwaukee and Indiana for a second. I've got Indiana winning this series. And I know Giannis is hurt. But I got to tell you, Tim, even if he weren't hurt, I don't know if I would have picked against Indiana because this year they've had their way with Milwaukee. Milwaukee doesn't seem to be able to stop them. We saw an aberration in Game 1 when Milwaukee held them to 94 points. We know that didn't only happen to Indiana only once this entire year where they were held to under 100 points in a game, but then they showed up in Game 2. I'm watching the game on television for about 10 to 15 minutes, Legs. I didn't see Indiana miss a shot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these brothers can shoot. And Milwaukee doesn't seem to have an answer, even with Dame averaging about 33, 34. What do you make of that series real quick?
Well, listen, I'm right with you. I was, I got to pick all these series. I was on record as saying going into the series, even if Giannis were healthy, I was going to pick the Pacers. Certainly without him, I loved their chances. Now, in Game 1, I thought Indiana was a team I didn't recognize. They were walking the ball up the floor. They weren't playing fast. Halliburton wasn't advancing the ball up the sideline the way they love to play to get you back retreating. It looked like a team to me that was a little bit overwhelmed by the moment of being in the postseason. They settled in Game 2, and that's the team I've been watching all year. Fast-paced, ball moving through the air, multiple three-point shooters spaced out at all times, hitting you with an initial surge in the first 10 seconds of the shot clock that most teams, Stephen A., are not prepared for, particularly when you only get them once in the regular season. Well, now the Bucks are going to have chances to adjust to it. The problem for Milwaukee, in my opinion, in this series, they play multiple bigs all the time. You're asking an awful lot for those guys to hit the offensive glass, turn and sprint, and get back to guard that level of pace that's coming at you up the floor. It's why the Pacers are so unique. If you have a smaller team that's got great speed, you can deal with that and now guard them in the half court. That's not the case with the Bucks, and that's why I felt really confident that Indiana was going to find their rhythm. They certainly did in Game 2. The Bucks have no matchup for Pascal Siakam until Giannis comes back. We don't know when exactly that's going to be. Siakam has done whatever he's wanted to in the first 2 games. Here's the thing, Stephen A. It's 1-1, and Halliburton really hasn't gotten going as a scorer. I think Game 3, he finally goes off a little bit, and the Pacers go up 2-1 and try to get both of those home games to take control of the series before you see Giannis at some point. I think it's critical Indiana gets both home games. They can't have a split. Because Giannis is going to appear in this series at some point. They got to get both to go up 3-1, but I really like their chances.
I put very few people on the planet are more qualified than you to answer this next question as quick as you possibly can. Do the Milwaukee Bucks look worse with Doc Rivers coaching them instead of Adrian Griffin? Or is it just a personnel issue that neither coach could necessarily conquer as we view these playoffs?
Well, I would say, honestly, there's not much difference between what I was watching the first 43 games of the year and what I've watched since Doc got there. Now, they had an adjustment period early. They were losing games. Everybody was wondering if it was the right hire. I knew it was going to take time. You're middle of the season. You're coming in as a coach. It takes you time to implement stuff, to change stuff. Then they went on a little bit of a winning streak, and it looked like their defense had picked up, and maybe Doc was going to have an impact. And now I see a lot of the same struggles I saw earlier in the year. Here's the one thing they have not figured out. They don't know how they close games. And that's why you brought in Damian Lillard. That's been the mystifying thing for me. They have not been good in close games, one possession games, 5 minutes to go. That's why you brought Lillard in, to make up for some of the deficiencies in Giannis's game offensively late in the game. They have not gotten it done when they're in those situations. I think for Lillard, it's been strange to finally play with a better player where he defers sometimes. He's not always in hyper-aggressive mode. When Giannis hasn't been there, that's when Dame looks like Dame. When Giannis plays, it's not there all the time. So I think they haven't meshed, and I just think they have slowed down defensively. This is not the same team that won a championship. So I don't know that Doc has had necessarily a negative or positive impact. It kind of looks like the same product that I saw earlier in the year, and they haven't been able to fill in some of those glaring weaknesses as the season's gone on. They're extremely vulnerable. They might not get out of the first round. If they do get out of the first round, there's a good chance to end up, with Boston eventually down the road.
Transition then to Miami, Boston. You were just a bit presumptuous saying Boston, as most of us are. Most of us, anybody that knows basketball, has got Boston winning this first round series. We certainly didn't expect the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler, without, Terry Rozier,
Right.
to go into Boston for Game 2 after getting blown out in Game 1, for Tyler Hero to be the best basketball player on the court, 24 points, 14 assists, for Bam Adebayo to be shooting over 60% from the field, averaging 22 a game, for guys like that to produce, and Miami ultimately to beat Boston in Boston. We didn't expect that. Any reason to be concerned with what we saw from the Boston Celtics in that game, too?
Absolutely reason to be concerned. And the main reason is Eric Spoelstra. And I've said this before, and I'm going to stick to this. I don't care what 10 guys you give me. If we were down at the health club, if it was the dream team, if it was a bunch of college guys, I want that guy coaching that group of 10 guys. That'd be my number one pick to coach any group. So he got him to believe, first of all, you don't have Butler, you don't have Rozier. You got smoked in Game 1. And now you're going to go up to play Boston in Game 2. And he had them in the mindset to be confident and aggressive. That's a lot of that is coaching, man, and communication skills. Okay, that's part of it. Here's the other thing, though. I want to be clear about this. There's been 3,300 playoff games roughly since they put the three-point line in. Only 3 times in the history of the playoffs have you seen a team make more threes than the Heat just did. So some of that is, wow, can they replicate that 23 made threes? Boston will be better defensively down there. There's reason to be concerned, but ultimately, man, this team won 64 games. This is by far the most complete starting 5 in the Eastern Conference. If they want to make a statement and not let this thing linger to 7 games or something like that, you need to go down and win Game 3, not get a split. Win Game 3 and immediately flip that script right back. Because right now, everybody's over-scrutinizing the Boston Celtics because it's the Heat and everybody's with the Heat. It's supposed to Heat culture. I get all of that. You won 64 games for a reason. You've got the most versatile starting 5 in the Eastern Conference, if not all of basketball. You got to go into Game 3, and you got to set the tone for how the rest of this series is going to go. And I expect Boston to have a great response.
Well, that would require Kristaps Porzingis to shoot better than 1 for 9 from the field, particularly with Caleb Martin guarding him. That's number one. But you brought in Boston's dominance, and I'm going to transition to the Western Conference because I started off this segment talking about LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, who are going up against the reigning defending champions in the Denver Nuggets, led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon is balling. Michael Porter Jr. is just doing what he wants when he wants. They just seem to completely have overmatched the Los Angeles Lakers to a point where there's a level of resignation that you can see in the face of the Lakers. They just can't beat these guys. They've now lost 11 straight. Folks are bringing the broomsticks to the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles tomorrow. I can't do it officially because I'm supposed to be objective, but damn it, my broomstick will be across the street at LA Live in the ESPN Center because I expect them to lose this game too, damn it, even though I'm hoping for otherwise. How do you explain what has happened to the Los Angeles Lakers being down 3-0 in this Western Conference first round series?
I love the word you use, resignation, because I want to be clear about something. There's a lot of people throwing the word quit around out there, and I'm going to explain to you the difference in my mind as an athlete between the two. Quit, I've used the word, not often, man. I hate using the word because it's the most, I think the biggest thing you could say in a negative way about any professional athlete is the word quit. So you got to be careful when you throw it around. Quitting to me is when you don't have enough fire in your belly to even where it matters enough to you to win.
Right.
That's not the Lakers. They have resigned and they have succumbed to a team that they can't stop. They can't guard this team. And LeBron said it afterwards the best way you can. They don't have a weakness. And eventually it wears on you to the point that you just get demoralized. And that's exactly where the Lakers are, man. They ran into the one team, Stephen A., in the Western Conference that they wouldn't have given a long series to, if not won the series. I really believe that. This is the one team because they've got size, they've got shooting, they've got, obviously, Jokic is the most unstoppable force in the Western Conference, if not the entire NBA right now. They play defense, they're well coached. He said it, there's no weaknesses. And the Lakers need something that they can attack and exploit. There's nothing on this team. And if you lose a game in which all 3 of your top players go off the way they did in Denver, you get a 20-point lead and you still can't hold on. That was the gut punch that told you how the rest of the series was going to go. I'll be shocked if Denver doesn't sweep them.
Is that your way of saying it would be unfair for us to hold against LeBron James getting swept in back-to-back postseason series against a team this formidable. MJ got swept, but it was early in his career when they were 3-game series against Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. He never got swept in a 7-game series. LeBron James has had it happen to him about 3 or 4 times. He's on the verge of it happening to him again. And we suppose, is it fair? Are we supposed to give him a pass?
No, we're not going to give him a pass because, listen, the guys on that level don't get those kind of passes. We know that. You're talking about historical greatness. Number 2, locked in at number 2, by the way, in my opinion. I think you and I agree on this. We've talked about it so many times on the air. He's locked in at 2. He's not running down the GOAT, Michael Jordan. He's not going to get caught from behind anytime soon, certainly. He's locked in at 2. Guys on that level, no, you have to. This has to be part of the way you describe them. It's part of their legacy, part of the way you remember them. It's a part of the story. But at the end of the day, you have to be realistic and honest in your assessment of who they are playing. Hey, great players sometimes overcome odds, right? And they drag a team through a series when they're clearly the underdog. It happens. This team right now, in their prime, just entering their prime, the Denver Nuggets, on the verge of what's going to be a significant and long-term run, and you're catching them at the very beginning of that when all these guys are young and healthy. I think we have to be realistic in what we were going to expect out of LA Lakers in this series. But when it comes up and you're talking about LeBron James' career, absolutely getting swept is going to have to be part of the conversation because the great players typically don't experience that.
One of the things I religiously tell people, you're not only one of the best analysts in America, you're also an historian. You're somebody that was on the basketball court, a former three-point shooting king in the NBA yourself, playing in Washington. I will ask you this question, Tim Legler. What would Michael Jordan have done under these circumstances against a team like the Denver Nuggets that, dare I say, may have been a touch different than what we're seeing from a LeBron James-led team?
Yeah, listen, we both know what that would have looked like. Michael Jordan would have basically decided he's going to have to get 50. He's going to have to get 55. I was playing in a playoff game when Michael Jordan hit us with a double nickel when I was playing in Washington, so I know what that looked like. That he would have just tried to take it completely upon himself to do something absolutely extraordinary to give them a chance to stay in the series to win a game. Now, here's the difference. LeBron James, you look at where he is at in this stage of his career. You're talking about a 40-year-old man.
Right.
All right, trying to do it against this team. It may not be fair to ask LeBron James to have to go for 40 or 50. Fair point. Right? So that's the difference. Michael Jordan, the comp would be Michael Jordan, the way he looked physically when he was playing in Washington, because that's what LeBron James is right now. Right? And that Michael Jordan wouldn't have been able to go for 50 against this team either. So it might be a little bit too much to ask. And that's why you're thinking, okay, LeBron, give me 25, 30, run the show. Anthony Davis, give me 30 plus, check. D'Angelo Russell, we need, obviously he didn't show up in game 3, but he certainly did down in Denver in game 2. Check, we got that. And you still can't beat him. And here's the thing, when Aaron Gordon he's to me is the tipping point. When Aaron Gordon is that aggressive offensively and he's that included in what they're doing offensively as a shot maker, now they've taken it to a completely different level where you really don't have any answers. Because it's enough with Jokic and Murray, my goodness. Michael Porter Jr. making jumpers. Now you're going to throw in Aaron Gordon into the mix to give me 20 plus. It's just like he did in the finals last year. That's when they look like a team that there's no answer for in this league, including
Boston. Including Boston. So now it's fair to say that if the finals was to start today, and I should say today because Boston just lost, but when the finals begin, you'd likely have Denver as the favorite over Boston. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely would. And I think they're going to have a big test. I think Denver will get a big test. And I think that big test is going to come in the next 2 rounds, actually. Minnesota, I think, when they get by Phoenix. And then the winner of the Mavs-Clippers, man, both of those teams, because if the Mavs win it, it's because all the things I picked them to win a series, I picked them to go to the conference finals, and that will have happened if they get there. If the Clippers get there, it means because they have righted the ship. Kawhi Leonard has come back. He's playing great. Now you look at all of that talent, how deep they are. That's a team that's formidable. They're going to get tested before the Western Conference playoffs are done without a doubt. If they survive that gauntlet and they get to the NBA Finals again, which I expect them to, yes, they will be favored to beat the Boston Celtics, even though they'll be going on the road for the first 2 games.
Last couple of questions. You talked about the difference between resignation and quitting. When you looked at Kevin Durant, particularly late in Game 2 against Minnesota the other day, which word was applicable in your mind?
No, that was more quitting than resignation to me. That was more a guy that's sort of waving the white flag. And look, part of it is this. Part of it is this. And I don't feel this way necessarily about the Lakers group. I do feel this way about the Suns. That doesn't look like a group to me that, if facing this kind of adversity, is going to roll their sleeves up, jump in the trenches together and fight. Get into the alley and make it a rock fight. They don't look that way to me. I just don't see the connection that you need to fight through something like this. This team is physically the best defensive team in the league. Mentally, they're going to wear you down. I don't know that Phoenix has that fight and that fire that it's going to take to dig themselves out of this. Can they win a game? Yes. Can they win a game 3? No question. With all that offensive talent, yes, it can come together on a night. But I don't see a team that truly believes that they have a group there that's enough to make a run through the West. And when Minnesota gets stronger throughout the game, Stephen A., it's amazing to me to watch. At the exact same time, Phoenix is wilting. It's happened both times. First 2 games, Minnesota finishes it just in your face while Phoenix sort of puts a tail between their legs and they go quietly as the game is winding down. It's been an amazing thing to watch. Phoenix has 1 shot to make this a series. It's game 3.
Great.
I'm very curious to see how they attack.
Listen, you just finished talking about greatness and what the requirements are for greatness. How are we to look at Kevin Durant if he ultimately gets bounced out again in the first round? And since he's departed from Golden State years ago, he's never been past the second round. How are we to look at him if Minnesota ends up bouncing him out?
I'm just going to tell you right now, listen, he's an all-time great talent, and he's a 2-time champion. You can't take it away, a 2-time finals MVP. But the one thing that he's going to lack, that these guys covet on that level, when you're talking about trying to get into that list, top 10, top whatever, right? You want to be part of that group, and that name is right at the forefront of your thought when you get asked the question, top 10, and the names pop off your tongue. You want to be in that category? You've got to have the one thing that he desperately covets and wants, and I don't see him getting it unless he leaves Phoenix or he ends up in another team. I don't see it happening, Stephen A., which is this: a championship with a core group of guys where you took them to a place that they have not been or could not be without you. He does not have that. Golden State won before he got there.
Yep.
Golden State won after he left.
Yeah.
That is a big deal. You can't take away what he was. That was the best player on those Golden State teams.
No question.
There's no doubt about it. Okay, you can't deny that. And he was great in getting it done. He almost looked bored by the end of the second one. Yeah. He almost looked bored, which is why he left. They didn't need it. He probably didn't feel he got enough credit. You need a group to call your own, that you lead somewhere where they have never been without you. Mm-hmm. And Brooklyn would have been that opportunity for all those guys. Obviously, that was a disaster. Phoenix could have been that opportunity. A franchise that's never won it, and you take them there, and look at how this is playing out. That's the one thing lacking, and it's going to keep his name from being one of those names that pops off your tongue when you start talking about top 10 all time.
By the way, before I forget, let me remind everybody, I believe Frank Vogel could end up being in trouble. He's not the coach that they wanted. That wasn't their first choice. They wanted Ty Lue, but the Clippers wouldn't let him out of his deal. Who knows what's going to happen in the near future, particularly if you end up being able to get your hands on somebody like Ty Lue, because Frank Vogel, from an offensively schematic standpoint, doesn't seem to be as innovative enough to really fuel a Bradley Beal, a Devin Booker, a Kevin Durant, in my estimation. But I think we should keep our eyes on that. Last question to you, Anthony Edwards. When I saw him performing in game 1, particularly in that third quarter, me and my man Mike Wilbon picked up the phone together, and we called Michael Jordan, and we said, "Yo, we watching somebody right now that look a little bit like you, just a little bit, just a touch." And all MJ would say is, "That is a bad brother. That kid can ball." When you watch Anthony Edwards right now, especially how he's going up against Beal and Booker and KD, your thoughts?
Man, listen, this is going to sound crazy to some people because I saw him in game 1, too, and he was absolutely electrifying, right? He's everything you want him to be and more in that head-to-head matchup. I got news for you. More impressed with him in game 2. Here's why. It wasn't his night offensively. He never really got going. And now you have this young player that's emerging, right? And we're all talking about him in the same vein. He is ascending at a meteoric pace.
Right.
He's rising right now. For a guy like that to be that young and not have it offensively on a given night, would not be shocked if you get into your own head a little bit, you kind of get pouty. It's not your night. Maybe you don't quite put forth all the effort on the defensive end of the floor. And guess what? I'd probably cut a guy his age a little bit of slack for that.
Right.
Instead, I saw the exact opposite. I saw a dude digging in defensively every possession, even though he wasn't making shots. I saw a dude bouncing up and down when guys are coming off the court, greeting them. And I saw him in a huddle, engaged, yelling, screaming, being positive, though. I saw leadership out of a very young player, and it told me emotionally he is growing to such an extent he's putting the entire package together. Physical tools are without question that last component to know if you're going to be the guy we think you can be is what's going on between your ears and how you handle adversity and how you handle different situations. The maturity level and the want to has been so impressive to me. I loved what I saw in game 2 on a night when he wasn't at his best offensively. You never would have known it by his demeanor. That is leadership.
Absolutely promise this is the very last question.
All right.
Minnesota, Dallas, the Clippers, OKC. I think we know Phoenix is done. I think we know the New Orleans Pelicans are done. Let's just call it what it is because they don't have Zion. Those 4 teams, the Clippers, the Mavs, the Minnesota Timberwolves, okay, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who do you give the best chance, A, of beating Denver, B, of being able to beat both Denver and Boston and potentially disrupt our expectations and win the chip?
Oh, this is so hard. It's a toss-up between Minnesota and Dallas. Minnesota, defensively and with their size, is the best matchup for Jokic. I don't think there's any question about that and what you have to do against them. Offensively, I don't know if they're going to have enough against that team. So then I go to Dallas and I say, yes, look, I like they added Gafford. They got athleticism and some length in the middle. But those guys, and even what Zubac has been done to Gafford in the first couple games, you can see they're going to get beat up physically with Jokic's weight and strength and all of that. And now you got to come up with a defensive game plan to double team and let guys get loose. So defensively, I think there's some issues. But you got the Luka factor. Ultimately, Stephen A., I trust him so much in certain situations inherently
and
in
Kyrie.
The way he controls the game. The only player I think close to Jokic's level in the league in controlling the game is Luka Doncic. And that's why I think I said it's 50-50. I just flipped a coin. I'm going to give a 51-49 edge to the Dallas Mavericks as the biggest threat.
My man, love you, bro. Appreciate you. Love working with you. Appreciate the expertise. Keep blessing the entire NBA stratosphere with the knowledge and the wisdom. I'm smart for a reason. I'm brilliant because I know I'm not. I just listen to those who are, and I steal their knowledge. I say it all the time, Tim Legler. I say it all the time. Appreciate you, my brother. I'll see you soon, all right?
Always, man. Love coming on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, my man. The one and only Tim Legler in the house right here with your boy, Stephen A.